Hey, everybody. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Stacy Casson, also known as Clarity Concierge. For those of you who can't see me, I'm a very tan woman. I have short, wavy, salt and pepper hair. I have a flower in my hair. I think it's white today. I have a white flower in my hair. I'm wearing clear glasses and a black tank top. And before we get started, let's go ahead and take a deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. Hey, Raven, I'm going to choose to not answer that question. Um, this is not that kind of show. I'm just wearing a tank top. I'm going to leave it at that one. It said, ask me anything, but I'm not necessarily going to answer everything. Yeah, so that's my answer to you, Ray. But good question. Thank you. Um, all right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the Pokemon of the day, unless you have any other questions. But again, they should be appropriate questions because I'm a human being and I really don't appreciate that kind of question. All right, so our Pokemon card for the day is the Skrelp. This is a kind of brownish sea dragon crossed with seaweed Pokemon. It's a psychic Pokemon, and Skrelp is kind of hanging out on the bottom of the ocean floor and gathering energy. So when I look at this Pokemon card, he's or it is very weak and it needs to hide away from predators. It is poisonous and to its prey, but it tends to protect its energy from predators. So I think that's kind of appropriate right now. Hey, welcome, Perkins. A blackout. Are you okay? Wow. I hope you get your power back soon. So we're starting with our Pokemon card of the day, and it's Skrelp and kind of chill. When I got this morning, I was thinking about keeping our intentions and things to ourselves, taking a moment to reflect and also to protect ourselves from toxic people and toxic situations. Awesome. I'm glad you got your power back. And I was thinking, okay, so what do I do with this kind of situation? And the next card we got, hey, Rose, good to see you. The next card we got was Incineroar, which is a cross between like a tiger and a wrestler. And Incineroar's belt comes from its navel, so this energy is from within. And I just think this is kind of, let me put them this way. This is kind of in opposition to our Skrelp, who's being quiet on the ocean floor. And then you have Incineroar belting out fire and everything. And I think this is a challenge for most people. You set an intention, I'm going to make this a calm day. I'm going to be present. And either it's someone external that is an Incineroar disrupting your day, or maybe you're your own worst enemy. I know for me, I'm my own worst enemy because I'd way rather be Incineroar, letting off the fire rather than be still. And I actually was still before I started this presentation. Well, this live, and I just got this idea of how do I reconcile these two things together. So Rose Perkins and anyone else, please go ahead and ask me anything. I will have to, I guess, put in a disclaimer. I reserve the right to not answer questions that aren't respectful, but I generally have a pretty good sense of humor, and you can ask me anything. So we have power today, and that's super awesome. And if you don't have a question, that's okay. We will on our normal Tigro to see what we may be thinking about today. And wow, we get the fighting. Funny, thank you. We get the fighting energy Pokemon card. And this one is, oh, you know what that reminded me? Back to and the Skrelp. Because I've been kind of, hey, Jingle, welcome to the party. The Skrelp is purple, and this is usually associated with spiritual things, and Incineroar, especially because the fire comes from its navel. This is orange, something about like creativity, personal energy, sensuality, those kind of things. And sometimes that can come into conflict with our higher self because we're so busy trying to get things out there. So that we get another fighting Pokemon. This is again orange, that kind of energy, creativity, those kind of things. So it might be a topic about how are we expressing ourselves? What are we fighting for? What are we fighting against? And let's see. Wow, we're just on fire today. So now we have the fire energy Pokemon card. I'm getting kind of like fight fire with fire as far as that goes. So these are both things about your energy, your personal power, expressing yourself, creative. Actually spent most of my time before this session doing a new like neurographic art thing. That's art that's supposed to work with your brain neurons and create new synapses and things like that. So that's totally awesome. And I actually felt really good after it. It was a lot of tension, but it was interesting. Wow, I guess we're in a fight today because what's what's realistic about this? And I just get another fight. I guess the Pokemons are like slapping us over the head about what are we fighting for, what are we fighting against, because that is also important because this one kind of has a little swoosh. This fist has a swoosh, so it's super sparkly. You believe in fire? Okay, Rose. I mean, and you all can put in the chat what comes to your mind when you think of fire, when you think of fighting. It could also be putting out fires, like sometimes just the literal reason, firefighting and putting out the fires in our life. Because some of us, especially if I'm going back to this idea of the Skrelp, we're not taking that moment to pause and reflect. Oh, thank you, Don. Oh, that's so sweet. I wouldn't be anybody without other people supporting me and cheering me on. Thank you. Thank you all. You think of warmth in life. That's beautiful. I love that. So those are some of the things that like what in our life brings us warmth, what in our life are things that make them alive. So maybe if you're struggling with a feeling of warmth, when you mention warmth, Jingle, I'm thinking about, oh, it left my mind. When you mentioned warmth, I was thinking about safety. When I have an idea of warmth, I'm thinking about so perhaps like what are the things that don't make us feel so safe today? And I also think that tiny star flowers, comfort and love. Okay, these are all awesome things to think about with fire. Safety. Okay, cool. So then this is so what are our opportunities to make ourselves feel more safe, to have that warmth and the love? And we get this intuition Pokemon card. This card has been coming up a lot and they ask me almost anything. So for those of you that can't see it, it's a purple glowing sphere with an eye in the center. I think what does help us is trusting ourselves. I think that's a really big challenge that a lot of people have in life. It is trusting yourself. So if you don't feel safe within your own boundaries, within your own head, a lot of us are like, yeah, I'm afraid to go into my mind. And I think the Skrelp is just coming back up because sitting with yourself and sitting with your thoughts it can be really difficult and challenging, but I promise you discomfort won't kill you. It might be really uncomfortable, but it won't be the end of everything for you. In yourself is the final boss. Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people, I'm going to put that up there because that is such a great quote. Okay, no, fire makes you think of passion and determination. No, that's awesome. So those are thinking of what are the things are you passionate about? And that's a great one about talking with your loved ones to feel supported and warm, because oftentimes we think that we have to live life alone. And I think life is a team sport. We're working together. And I mean, everybody here that's showing up and rooting me on, that absolutely is feeling this pattern, this passion and determination, because I'm determined to do a live every day for an hour in February. And having that support network, having other people that are fighting for you, fighting with you, that can help you continue to stay the course, continue on. If you're thinking, why am I doing this? Everybody needs a cheerleader. We need to be our number one cheerleader. But sometimes they're just get up and go, got up and went. And that's why having other human beings to connect with you, to encourage you is super important. And you all know, if you need a kind word, just hit me up. I'm happy to be your number one cheerleader. Well, technically I'm your number two cheerleader, because my friend Ekua, she is the number one cheerleader, and I'm not going to fight her because she's little and powerful. Yeah, you love being with people. I do too, Rosa, but sometimes I absolutely need that quiet time to recharge and finish. And sometimes being with people makes me question myself. Like, I feel really confident about something. When you're down, stay by your number two fan. Thank you. Like, sometimes you feel really confident and you made a decision. And I don't know if this has happened to you all, but then you go and talk to somebody, ask you questions, or like, are you sure? And it can make you doubt yourself sometimes if you have not tapped into that inner reserve. And yes, sometimes people point out relevant questions that you really should think about those questions, but sometimes it really just gets you off track. Yeah, your mind can twist your own reality, and then to get yourself back on track. And what's our next step? Fighting. I don't know how many times we're going to get this fighting Pokemon card. So for those of you out there that might be discouraged, that you're not trusting yourself, it is a fight. It is a struggle. So let's explore. Okay, we're thrown all the way off. How can we get back on track, right? Let's explore that. We're thrown all the way off. We're doubting ourselves. How can we get back on track? So let's see what is happening, right? Maybe what is happening. What does it feel like when you're doubting yourself? And wow, this Magikarp is suffering. This is not, this does not look good. It looks like it's, to me, it looks like it's struggling. Even though it's underwater, it looks like it's gasping to breathe. To me, you all might see something different. So this is an orange carp, and it is expelling, I don't know what it's expelling, some particulates out of its mouth, and its eyes are bugged, and its environment kind of looks a little toxic, like somehow there's fire under the water. So when we're doubting ourselves, it's gasping for air. And actually this one is flail. So we're flailing around because we don't know what to do, or we don't know what's happening. And that's a really horrible feeling. But if you noticed, well, if in the card, the Magikarp is underwater. So it is in its environment. And according to the card, it's the most weak and pathetic Pokemon in the world. And sometimes that's how we feel, right? We tell ourselves we're the most weak and pathetic creature on earth. But even though it's gasping, it's in the water. And I think sometimes we forget. It's like people that are drowning and all they have to do is stand up, right? So sometimes maybe Magikarp is, I'm drowning, but it's like, bro, you're in the water. You have gills. You can breathe. So what's the challenge? And sometimes the challenge is recognizing that maybe that's where we're at. So we have a fire Pokemon card. This is Growlithe. Growlithe looks like a cross between a smug puppy and a tiger, and it's got like some amazing hair. And Growlithe is very confident. It's treading across. It looks like a rocky landscape, but it's a blue sky out there. But Growlithe looks really confident, and I think that's the challenge that we face, to go from this gasping for air to being confident, right? Because we're not trusting ourselves, and we're kind of, and again, this is a water Pokemon, and you have fire Pokemon, and water and fire can tend to cancel each other out, but they can also work together. If you boil water, you can create steam. If you're on fire, water can put you out. So they're not a good thing or a bad thing. They just are, and they can work together, or they can work. They can work to fight against each other. So then, what can help us when we've gone all the way down the rabbit hole? We're not feeling good. Fighting. Sometimes we have to fight our way back. It's a fighting energy, but this one has like behind it and an eruption. And sometimes it's just it's getting that an awakening of, you know, that voice isn't mine. Because sometimes there's a phrase that says the thoughts think themselves, and we're bombarded with things, and sometimes like that's really not us. I don't think it's like some weird and we're possessed or whatever, but there's we get into these patterns, and these other things are coming to our into our head. And like, if that was your friend, you would never say such things to your friends, so why are you going to say that to yourself? Yeah, absolutely, the fighting spirit. Like, I don't know how many fighting cards I have in here. I love it. Yeah, because if we still have fight in us, we still have hope, right? So how can we move forward? How can we get back to, finding our mojo? And we get the Pokemon intuition card. This is purple card again with the eyeball. It's a psychic energy card, but like, I mean, some people don't believe in psychics or whatever. I like to look at this as tapping into your intuition. And intuition is, it's not woo woo. Intuition is, you're observing and learning all your life. If you're in school, you've been studying. If you're at work, you start to see patterns and trends. And I think your intuition can sometimes be like a shortcut to understanding what's happening. Intuition is like, you get a gut feeling about somebody, and like, something's not right about that person, or something's not right about this situation. And how many times when you're like, oh, you don't listen to it, and then you're like, I chose poorly, I should have listened to that little voice. And I think what's great to help us when we're gaslighting ourselves, and when we don't believe in ourselves, is to remember a time when you did believe in yourself, when you did hear that little voice and it was right. And that's a good reminder that, you know what, I do know what's best for me. I do know when things are wrong. I can trust myself, because when I listen to myself, it helps me. Yeah, Jingle says that my intuition has saved me before. It's important to listen to it. So, if we get off track, that's okay. But it's also important to listen to, noticing, like, this is not me. This is not who I am. This is not the person that I want to be. Tap back into your intuition, and think of ways that you do connect to that. For some people, it's just taking a moment to be still. It's breathing. Like, I don't know, I forget to breathe sometimes, so I'm going to breathe right now. And breathing allows you to tap into your body, to wow, I have a lot of tension in my neck. Why is that? And generally for me, when my neck is stiff, it's not stiff, I can actually turn it, but when it's tense, it means like I feel like I'm carrying the weight on my shoulder. Yeah, or I'm just not breathing. And breathing helps to relax your muscles. If you breathe deeply and slowly, you stimulate your vagus nerve, and that calms you down. And also, being hydrated can help. Journaling, Art art is a great way to tap into what you're feeling, but I like feeling because it's kind of like having a conversation with myself. Yeah, your shoulders get heavy when you're tense. I happen to gaslight myself constantly, so it's become hard to know what is and isn't my intuition. Yeah, that's a really good question. How do we know? When is it our intuition? When is it maybe we're trying to rationalize ourselves away? What what can help us with that? So that's a great question that you didn't quite ask, but I'm asking the question. How do we relearn to trust ourselves? How can we tell when it's something that we should pay attention to? So we're going to look at like a topic. We're going to use T-Girl for this one. And we get the Steel Pokemon card. I got a lot of Steel yesterday. And this is a gray card with a glowing silver sphere, an inverted triangle with brackets. And when I'm thinking about what is my intuition and what is not, steel is really strong and flexible. It could almost be a trap, like your mind is like a vice, right? It's a vice, steel trap. But steel can also withstand a lot of storms and weathers. Steel is a combination of other metals, so it's that combination together makes it stronger, even though it's lighter than other metals. So let's think about this idea of steel and our intuition. Like, what comes to mind for me is my mind is like a steel trap. I remember everything, I notice things. That's kind of what comes to mind for me, just to start off with steel. So then, what's the topic? And here we have the lightning energy Pokemon card. And so this is like something we want to delve into. And yellow for me is about joy. Oh, I'm so glad it's easy for you to understand. For me, it was about joy. It's about finding that spark. And we're talking about electricity. And then this is up to steel, right? So that's a good conductor. What's a good conductor? When we're not trusting ourselves, that for me means there's maybe some kind of blockage. And our intuition isn't flowing. It's not able to find a channel or a path for the circuits to get connected. So maybe like there's like our intuition has gone offline, or there's something that's not letting the energy flow through. So that's the challenge that we're facing when we gaslight ourselves and trying to trust yourself. So what's something that can help? What is something that maybe we're not aware of in that situation? And so for this one, we get the energy switch. And this was a card yesterday. So this is a handle with a, I don't know, some kind of panel, like instrument panel on the middle, and it has two arms, and they can hold Pokemon balls, and it looks like they kind of either transport them from one side to the other. And that's kind of what we need to do with our thoughts. Gaslighting ourselves, it's asking yourself, is this real? Switch it up a little bit. Get a new perspective. Maybe go for a walk. But don't just accept that this thought is real. Because how many times have you gone and maybe you ask and hey, do you want to catch a movie? And they say, oh, I'd love to catch a movie, but I already had plans, maybe another time. And the reality is they probably really wanted to catch a movie with you and they had plans. But in our brains, especially when we're gaslighting ourselves, we're thinking, nobody ever wants to go with me. I'm a loser. They hate me. They just invented plans so they don't hang out with me. And is that true? And this is where observation comes in. So maybe if every single time you ask this person to go to the movies, they may not be your friend, or they may not want to hang out with you, or perhaps they're just too shy to say, I really don't like the movies. I'd love to do something else with you, right? Or maybe you notice you asked the day before and this person is really busy. So maybe you have to like ask a month in advance and get a day on the calendar with them. But before you just assume that the person hates you, which a lot of us default to that, Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to show that one. A lot of us default to those negative thought patterns. Let's switch that up a bit. And sometimes it could be as simple as reaffirming to yourself, look in the mirror, I can trust myself. I make good decisions. And maybe write down the times that you have made good decisions in the past. Write down the times that your intuition has helped you and repeat that to yourself. An energy switch is kind of about reprogramming. When I was doing my neuropathic, I think it's neuropathic or neurographic session, it's apparently a metaphor of making new connections in your brain. So we have these old stories that we keep telling ourselves. Let's see, let me see what comment I have. Sometimes I put myself in their shoes. I couldn't hang out with a friend that I'm gas. Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Jen Gold, to put yourself in the other person's shoes and think about, well, what else could be happening here? And yeah, my simple question is it true? Is it true? And oftentimes we can find ways to switch the story. Like, that's a great idea, to take another perspective, or to think about, what if I was talking to a friend and they were telling me about this situation, to give yourself a little distance so it can increase your objectivity. Okay, so we've realized that we have a short circuit and we need to switch things up a bit. What in this situation? What needs to change? And this one, we get a water energy Pokemon card. And for me, this is a blue card with a blue glowing sphere and a water droplet. And for me, water is about digging beneath the surface. It's usually about our feelings and our minds, and feelings are not facts. Feelings are stories that we have constructed around certain ideas that we've put that together. So, oh, you love water Pokemon. That's awesome. Yeah, feelings are the things, like if you see a chocolate chip cookie, you might feel that you're hungry, but it's more that you have a positive association with chocolate chip cookies, and that triggers, oh, your mouth starts salivating and I want to eat this chocolate chip cookie. Somebody else may have tasted a horrible chocolate chip cookie, and every time they see a chocolate chip cookie, they shudder. It, like somebody fooled them and maybe put laxative chips in their cookies, so they have a bad reaction to the cookies. But both of them is a story that we're telling ourselves. Okay, so Jingle, you said water is purity and truth, it's calming and gentle. I agree with that. And in this particular Pokemon card, it looks like to me, sometimes I look at water Pokemon cards and I feel like if you're underwater, there's a lot of pressure. It's kind of like the bends, when you're diving, you have to take it slow to ease into the water, and also when you're coming back out of the water. So what can help us is to maybe dive in those feelings, dive into those thoughts, and take another look. What's underneath the thought? Maybe it's that you need more training and you don't want to admit that, or maybe you just need help. But it's thinking about, why don't I trust myself? What's happened to me in the past? What are some wounds maybe that I haven't looked into and I need to explore a little bit more? And then with that, okay, that's all nice and woo woo, and that sounds beautiful, but what's a tangible step? I kid you all not. What's a tangible step that we can take? Oh, that's a good point. Sometimes I'm going to share this comment with everyone. The truth hurts, and water can be rough and the waves can be huge, so you have to brave it. And that ties in perfectly with the fighting Pokemon card. Sometimes we have to fight around in our despair, in our overwhelm, in our feelings. So what is a life jacket that can help us? What's something that can, burn off some of that water maybe, or if it's boiling, to transform into a different state. When I'm looking at kind of fire, fighting, and water, I'm thinking of survival, but I'm also thinking about, we want to get out of that fight or flight. We want to get out of the fight or flight stage. And sometimes the answer is freeze. take a moment to freeze and pause and center yourself. Again, asking those questions. Is this true? So more fighting for this evening. This is just this is for what it, for this I would say whatever happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club, but we're all, this is live, and this is going to stay on YouTube. So but that's a really great question, and I hope that that helps you all to interrupt those gaslighting thoughts. You know, when the wave comes over you, sometimes you just have to let the wave wash, you let the wave wash over you, and then you come back up. If you're caught in a rip tide, you go with the flow until you can get out of it and swim against it. Yeah, fighting is just the vibe today. That is the vibe today. Any actual other questions from you all? Those are some good ones, and that helps to remind me as well, because honestly today I was like, why am I doing this? Nobody's going to show up. And I said, no, that's not true. And look at how many of you all showed up today. So that's just the power of changing your thinking. I literally, before I started this, I my friend got me into chanting, and I was just like, people are going to show up, we're going to have fun, the questions are just going to come, because I honestly couldn't even think of any questions if nobody asked questions. Look, people showed up. You all are asking amazing questions. The interaction is so good. And yeah, it being afraid of ways, being afraid of trusting yourself, because it's sometimes easier. I just wish somebody else would tell me what to do. I just would just tell me what to do, me what to wear, tell me what to eat. I don't want to make any decisions. And that's honestly really stressful to the people around you. I didn't realize I was doing that until one of my girlfriends is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to choke you if you don't make a decision. Yeah, no, you have a tendency to draw while listening to people rather than talking to them. I mean, again, is that a problem? Are you, does your drawing maybe help you focus on what the person's saying? Because people have uh, different ways of processing the world. For example, people that doodle in class actually retain a lot more information than the non-doodlers. So I'm going to challenge you. So you have a tendency to draw while listening to people rather than talk to them. Do you always have to say something? Maybe people appreciate the listening, and your drawing is a way to help you be a good listener. It helps you focus and brings you joy, but stops me from interacting to the people speaking. Okay, so perhaps you can think about, well, why am I drawing? Is it a barrier? Is it a defense mechanism? Is there something, are there people that when you're around them you don't feel the need to draw? And yeah, and sometimes why do we have to say anything? And yesterday we were talking about always having to fill the space. And it's okay to have pauses. Watch, I'm on a live show and I'm going to pause. The world didn't fall apart. Maybe you all had the time to reflect. I'm glad it's relaxing. Yeah, so some people enjoy just a companionable silence. And I think for me, the people that you can sit and not talk to, be comfortable, that's a different kind of relationship. That's a whole other level of trust and camaraderie and friendship, when you don't have to say anything to the other person. Maybe you're having psychic conversations. I'm definitely not there yet. I can't even read lips, so that's to read somebody else's mind. I am not there yet. I'm not there yet. Yeah, so I mean, as you do that, yeah, okay, you're reflecting. Sometimes it's a company that's better than the conversation. It made me think about how I fear the world moves too fast. It is moving at an astronomical speed. But again, is that true? Because right now, I don't know what's going on in your life right now, but just think about right now in this moment. I'm hoping that everybody, because you all seem to have access to the internet, that everybody has shelter, has power because you're online, right? Everybody has the ability to communicate. You think it isn't true. You think what isn't true. Can you clarify what that is? Or were you responding to me saying, is it that the world is moving too fast? I think maybe how humans interact with the world. I think humans are very connected to this idea of time. Okay, the world isn't moving too fast. But when you look at a tree or water, the world is just the world for them. Trees are here for some of them for hundreds of years. And the world is just, it's just life for them. A fish doesn't notice that the water is wet, but we put these conditions onto systems because we're a species that for some reason has this idea of time. I honestly don't know if animals perceive time the same way that people do, but I think a lot of this is what we put on ourselves. And time can speed up and time can slow down. One of my favorite stories, I'm not going to tell which child, but I was hugging one of my kids when they were younger, and they said, I wish I could stay here forever. And not, no kidding, like maybe 5 seconds later, they're like, is forever over yet? Okay, I think perhaps we as people have too many things to do and so little time. We only ever notice the loss of it. Therefore, we think that everything's going faster than it is. That is a great perception. I'm throwing that up there. Yeah. And again, I challenge us to think, do we have to do all the things? Are we doing, when we try and do and smush in so many things, are we doing them well? Versus when you take the time. I did this experiment several times. In one of my old roles, I had to do a lot of reports in the morning. And I would try and multitask. I said, okay, I'm going to set up this report. And in the meantime, I'm going to run this and answer an email. And I timed myself and decided I'm going to do one thing at a time. I'm not going to multitask. I'm going to do one thing at a time, focus on that. Sometimes I even closed my email so it wouldn't pop up. And I shaved off about 10 minutes just doing one thing at a time. So the myth that multitasking is faster, because what my understanding of the neuroscience has shown is that every time you're switching back and forth from task to task, it's causing an interruption in your brain and you're not coming back on time. And that's a great point, that we're obsessed with quick and effective because it makes us productive and we're happy when we're productive. And for me, this might be radical, but I think productivity is a tool of the power center, because God forbid employees or people think for yourself. And it turns sour when you lose focus and yeah, everything longer. I again, what does productivity truly mean? Because the trees don't sit there and say, we produced we produced 20 apples. Next year we're going to produce 30 apples. The trees produce what they have the resources to do, grow indefinitely. Trees and plants and the natural world, they grow, they're an ecosystem, and they have symbiosis. They share the nutrients together, because if they grow really fast, then they become cancer. Because what is cancer? Cancer are cells growing out of control. So I'm glad you like the tree example. So you kind of have to have a balance of resources, give and take, yin and yang, right? If when we lose species, it's not just, okay, we don't have any more mosquitoes, yay, right? We think that's, we don't have any more mosquitoes, but other things eat the mosquitoes, and they get fed from that. Or if you get rid of like a frog, for example, or certain predator level, not predator, but I mean, they're a predator in their own world. If you get rid of them, then you get an imbalance. Like I'm reading a book called Blight, and they're talking about how fungus are infecting bats. And with the loss of the bats, they're seeing increases in insect population because there's not as many bats to eat the insects. And it throws the whole ecosystem out there. So everything is necessary and connected. And a lot of it is people bringing in like foreign animals or trade, like they bring in exotic plant species, and it throws off the balance of that system. So it's really interesting about that. So I would challenge us to think, what does productivity mean? I had a friend, and they actually had they would just do nothing. Like that was their resistance. My mom actually made us a t-shirt. It's called the Lazy Girls Club. And I think she was onto something. When you take a moment to not do anything, that's when all those ideas come to your brain, right? If you've taken a moment and you sit with it, because it is challenging. I've challenged myself to just sit for 10 minutes without my phone. And some days it is so hard. And other days I wish, like, what is a phone? What is this thing that you talk of? Some days it is easy to just be still. And those moments of stillness allow you to process life, and then you can respond to life versus reacting. Yeah, it's a good, my boss actually challenged me to wait on things. 'Cause, like, I notice you get back right away, and sometimes when you do that, you miss some of the bigger pictures, a bigger picture or other ideas. And now you're sending 20 million emails like, oh, and I thought of this, and oh, and I thought of that. So one of the things for me that I'm trying to do, hello, Parker Woodley, is to write myself and just send it. I don't know what a Swifty is. So that's a great question. If you want to elaborate as to what a Swifty is, I'll answer. I don't think I'm a Swifty because I don't know what that is in the Ask Me Anything challenge. So yeah, I mean, that might be a fun thing for us to do, is take these challenges and start off small, like even 5 minutes sometimes. Ah, no, I'm not a Swifty. I think she has decent music, but I think most stars out there are just part of the power center and something that people think they aspire to be, but it, to me, just perpetuates this idea that there should be ridiculous amounts of income inequality. So I'm not a Swifty. I think I like a lot of her songs, but I'm not a fanatic. But I do like some of her songs. I will say I think Beyonce was robbed, but again, in the bigger picture, okay, yes, these people work hard, and there is definitely issues with Black artists not being recognized. But I'm looking at, even in our food chain, I had a newsletter today that a lot of our food comes from prison labor. So I know I'm a Debbie Downer sometimes, but like, these stories, these big stories that come out, they distract us from what is happening in the world and how those systems work underneath. Are you a Swifty, Parker Woodley? If you're a Swifty, I mean, you do you. I just think there's bigger things in the world. But music, I mean, and it's not a. I'm not saying that Taylor Swift or Beyonce or all these people are meaningless in the big picture, because music is my life. You know, music makes you lose control. Music soothes the savage beast. Music changes our mood. Music is amazing. And so people that can create that is fantastic. But let's, again, how does that work in the ecosystem of the world? Because humans are not unique. We're not special. We're another animal in this planet, and we've been talking about balance in the past. So are we working with or against our environments in the world? How are we relating to each other globally? And seeing that interconnectedness, because It's not that, oh, you're way over there. Like I know some of these people that are online right now, we're all in different countries, but that doesn't mean that we're not connected, because the actions that I take, the choices that I make play a part into what other countries impact. The actions of our energy sources and economic and environmental injustice impacts other countries nowhere near me. So we're not feeling it yet, but then we are. Like here where I live in Florida, there was an earthquake off the coast in Jamaica. Seawall broke down. We have tornado warnings, right? And that wasn't normal before. We've had them in the past, but the last time tornadoes were a thing, we had the ability for them, but it was like with a hurricane. That's when we had tornadoes here in Florida. But yeah, those all these things are connected, and we're not we're not noticing because it's things that don't affect us right now. They don't affect us right now, but they will affect us in the long term. Notice that maybe there's less natural lizards. I mean, something as simple as a lizard. Where I live, all these little bulldog tail lizards have taken over. And we have, what is it, anacondas in the Everglades. These things throw off the natural balance. And it's something to really look into, because it's diversity is what will help us to survive as a species. If you all, I recommend reading the book Blight, and another one, Entangled Lies, but that's where I'm at right now is Blight. And I'm not a scientist, but it's really fascinating to me how the monolithic crops, like the big industrial farm complex where they all grow the same kind of crop, the crops are really susceptible to fungus infections, and we had to breed a different kind of banana because they basically were were wiped out because of fungal infections. So diversity, those are the things that help us to perpetuate life as we know it. Yeah, biodiversity, one of your favorite classes. That's awesome. So I think we've forgotten that, and yeah, I don't have solutions for that, but maybe consider growing some plants in your yard, because you never know what you'll need. So far I've managed to grow scallions, and my rosemary's limping along, but nothing truly edible. But I mean, that's a way you resist some of these things, is experiment. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You plant something and it dies. Yeah, you have lemons and lime. That's awesome. I grew a key lime plant from seed. I got like an organic key lime thing, and it grew, and it almost died. And I talked to it, and the leaves came back, and I replanted it to have more room, and it died. So I never got any key limes, but it was really kind of cool to grow something from seed and see where it came up to be. I had an orange tree too, and it came with orange on it. I don't know how this orange worked, because it literally took like 3 years, and the orange was still there, and it finally turned orange, and that literally was the sweetest orange we've ever had. And now it's a stick, and I refuse to uproot it because my magical is, no, one day my orange tree will come back. I think it's highly unlikely, and sometimes we need to plant new seeds. We need to accept loss and plant something new, because that is also a part of life. It's a part of things. In the wild, you have fire, and it clears the land. You planted a bean and watched it grow. Yeah, that's really cool, just observing the world around us. And it seems to take a lifetime, but all of the time that it takes for things to grow is how the nutrients came. Yeah, that's life when it stopped growing. But that's ourselves too. If we think of ourselves as plants, what happens when we force things to grow, when you force things to ripen, a lot of times people are like, the fruit that you grow yourself tastes better sometimes than what you buy in the grocery store, or fruit that if you can buy from a local farmer that it's been ripened on the vine. It's had time to develop for all those sugars to come into play and for the full nutrients to come into it. So when we're talking about being productive, are we giving ourselves the time to come into the fullness of our creativity, of our insight, of our purpose, of our ideas? We need that time. And it seems counterintuitive to take time, but it's slow down to go faster. Oh, I'm glad you like that apple. And for me, I notice when I rush, everything, it's like everything's not working. Like, oh, this file won't open. I keep typing this word wrong. And I think that's my subconscious making mistakes to go, hey, take another look at this. Something's here. And when, again, back to our original thing of listening to our intuition, I embrace those obstacles. When things start going wrong, I try and think of it as, oh, thank you, whatever is happening out there. You're trying to tell me something. Or thank you, pain and frustration. You're trying to tell me something. And a lot of times we don't want to feel those things. You just want to fix it, make it better now, right? If we are sick, we want to take medicine to address the symptoms, but a lot of times what we really need to do is rest. If you're tired, you want to drink coffee or some other stimulant, versus what I really need to do is take a nap. And sometimes just closing your eyes for 10 minutes if you're tired will get you a lot of energy. Oh, I'm so glad that I'm positive. Really, I'm not going to say that I'm positive, which I feel I am positive, but perhaps you are allowing yourself to respond to the positivity that's already inside of you, right? Because we connect with things that remind us of who we are. So if you are finding me to be positive, then I'm thinking that there's some positivity in you and you're inspiring yourself to do that. That's a way to think about it. I could be full of Mahone, but that's just a way to think about it. But like when somebody talks to you and you get upset by what they have to say, most of the times we're upset because we agree with what they have to say to some extent. Like if somebody, you're so stupid, and that's not a nice word. But if somebody says that and we react to it, then we probably think that somewhere deep down, or it wouldn't have affected us so much. So when you're feeling uncomfortable, when those thoughts come to your head, instead of reading them, consider exploring them, be curious about them. Like even when we're gaslighting ourselves, maybe, what am I trying to protect myself against? Maybe there's something I'm not ready to face right now. How can I get ready to face that, to face those things? I hope that helps. All right, we have a little over 5 minutes left. Any last questions for those of you that are here? And thank you all for joining. This has been amazing. But do you have any other questions? I'm so glad it's helpful. But I'm going to share with you all. Really try and visualize things going well, because I was honestly, I was not looking forward to this. I'm like, nobody's going to show up and I'm going to be floundering. And I said, no, I'm not accepting that for myself. And to imagine this being awesome. And I'm so glad that, and it's working out. I'm glad this is helping everybody. It's definitely helping me as well. You all reminded me about the power of the pause. Yeah. Okay, that's cool if you don't have questions either. And I'm happy that this has made you calm about next week and the work you have to do. So let's think about what do we want to do for the week ahead. One of my favorite things is something called stop, start, continue, right? So we have a goal to have a great week ahead. Let's say that's our goal. So what do we stop doing? What do we want to start doing? Oh, this is hilarious. And what do we want to continue doing? So we actually work in a kind of weird order in stop, start, continue. So we start with the continue, and we have the lightning energy Pokemon card. Continue to do the things that bring you joy, the things that make you calm. For me, yellow is also about personal empowerment. So continue to do the things that make you feel empowered, the things like trusting yourself and having confidence in yourself. Then we look at, what do we stop doing? We want to stop drowning in our sorrows. Yeah, continue to empower yourself. When I see the water in this particular case of what I want to stop doing, I think of water in the sense of a lot of pressure and sometimes feeling like drowning. So maybe time to stop doing things that don't make you happy, things that make you feel overwhelmed, or explore, why is that making you feel overwhelmed? Is that something that I truly need to be doing because this is making me feel like I'm drowning and I don't like that feeling? So once we've figured out the things that aren't for us, yeah, the water may be shallow and maybe it's deep, but you forgot you can swim. Absolutely. Magikarp forgot that it could breathe. So, yeah. So stop fighting. That could be another thing too. Stop fighting so hard against what you can't control. A lot of times our suffering is we just don't accept the situation. And I don't mean by accepting that this is just the way it is and it's always going to be that way. It's just accepting that this is what it is like right now and thinking of a way forward. So then what do we want to start doing? Anybody has a guess what we start doing? No guesses? Fighting. Start doing creative things, right? I'm gonna take this fighting as creativity. Orange for me is about being creative, exploring art, sensuality. Maybe go get a massage, or other things that might not be family friendly on this show. But yes, fighting. We're gonna start fighting for the things that we believe in. We're gonna start fighting to overcome our limitations, our limiting beliefs, our limiting thoughts. We're going to start fighting against people telling us who we are instead of making that for ourselves. Yes, woo woo. We're all fighting, fighting the good fight, fired up, ready to go. We can do this. You can make a change. It's not going to be easy. Not going to say that it's going to be easy because he likes to change. I hate change, but I have practiced change and now it's almost fun. Not totally, but it's almost fun. I'm definitely more open to change. Yeah, don't accept defeat, accept yourself and make a change. I'm going to highlight that as our closing remark. And help us get ready for that, we're going to go ahead and take another deep breath in. Exhale all the gaslighting. Take another deep breath in. And exhale. Allow yourself and your muscles to relax. Another deep breath in. And exhale. And team, let's just take a moment to still. Notice how you feel now versus when we started. I'm going to do the same. For me, I definitely have way less tension in my neck than when I started. And I just encourage you all to envision yourself doing well. A lot of athletes, they train by mentally envisioning themselves doing the perfect lap, the perfect dive, the perfect race. If you can see it, you can more than likely achieve it. I'm not going to give you like, yes, you could do it, because I don't think I will ever learn how to twerk because hard as I am trying. Awesome. I'm so glad that your shoulders feel relaxed and you're not freaking nervous. So, everybody that's joined tonight, thank you so much. Tomorrow's stream will be at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and you can always catch the replay. If you think of questions, just put them in the comments and you can be Team Replay. Again, I really appreciate you all fighting. Great evening. Be well. Awesome. I'm glad you got a lot of perspectives. Fantastic. Tell a friend. All right, everybody, have a great night. See you tomorrow. Be well.